Society says holding tears is strength, and crying easily makes you broken. But psychology proves the opposite. Your tears aren't an emotional failure. They reveal a highly responsive nervous system. You know that moment a simple comment makes your throat close up, and you rush away, shaming yourself for breaking down. If you keep swallowing this guilt, you will permanently numb your capacity for joy. This video will decode your mind and set you free. What US city or state are you watching from? Because no matter how lonely this vast country feels, you never have to carry your heavy heart alone. We live in a culture that has learned to admire emotional distance. The person who remains calm during heartbreak is called strong. The employee who never shows stress is considered professional. The child who wipes away their tears before anyone notices is praised for being brave. Again and again, we are taught that strength means control, and control means showing as little emotion as possible. So when you cry easily, people may assume something is wrong with you. They may tell you that you are too sensitive, too emotional, too dramatic. They may look uncomfortable when your eyes begin to fill, as though your tears have created a problem that you are now responsible for solving. Perhaps you have even learned to apologize before the first tear falls. You say, "I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm crying." But deep down, you often do know. You are crying because something touched a place inside you that you have spent years trying to protect. You are crying because your body recognized an emotion before your mind could find the words for it. You are crying because you have been carrying more than anyone around you realizes. And clinical psychology does not support the simple idea that crying easily means you are weak. In many cases, frequent tears are not evidence of emotional failure. They are evidence of an emotional system that responds quickly, deeply, and honestly. The real wound is often not the crying itself. The real wound is the shame that arrives with it. For many people, that shame began long before adulthood. It began on a playground, in a classroom, at the dinner table, or in the backseat of a car. Maybe you fell down and scraped your knee. Before anyone asked how badly it hurt, someone told you to stop crying. Maybe another child excluded you, embarrassed you, or laughed at something that mattered to you. When you became upset, an adult said, "Don't be so sensitive." Maybe you were a boy who was warned that boys do not cry, or a girl whose sadness was dismissed as attention-seeking. Perhaps you lived in a home where emotions made the adults uncomfortable, so you learned to hide them to keep the peace. The message may have sounded harmless. "Calm down, you're fine, it's not a big deal." But to a child, those words can become a verdict. The child does not hear, "This moment will pass." The child hears, "My feelings are wrong." They begin to believe that sadness is embarrassing, fear is unacceptable, and tears make them difficult to love. Instead of learning how to understand an emotion, they learn how to judge themselves for having it. That child grows older, but the verdict remains. Years later, they may cry during an argument and immediately feel humiliated. They may become overwhelmed at work, lock themselves in a bathroom, and stare into the mirror with anger toward their own reflection. They may hear one gentle sentence from another person and suddenly break down, not because the sentence was painful, but because kindness reached a part of them that had been neglected for too long. Then the old voice returns. "Why can't you control yourself? What is wrong with you? Why are you always like this?" This is how emotional sensitivity becomes emotional shame. The person is not only experiencing sadness, they are also watching themselves experience sadness and condemning every second of it. One emotion becomes two. Pain is followed by self-criticism. Grief is followed by embarrassment. Vulnerability is followed by guilt. Eventually, they may stop trusting their own reactions. They wonder whether they are overreacting, even when something genuinely hurts. They minimize their needs before anyone else has the chance to dismiss them. They become experts at saying, "It's okay," while something inside them is quietly collapsing. Some become people pleasers because conflict feels physically overwhelming. Some isolate themselves because being seen while emotional feels unsafe. Others become unusually independent, not because they do not need comfort, but because they learned that needing comfort came with humiliation. This can be especially painful for someone already living with depression, loneliness, or low self-worth. When you already believe that you are too much or not enough, tears can feel like proof. Every emotional moment appears to confirm the fear that you are unstable, burdensome, or broken. But your tears are not a character flaw. They are information. They may be telling you that your nervous system has been under pressure for too long. They may be revealing grief that never had a safe place to go. They may be expressing exhaustion that you have disguised as responsibility. Sometimes they appear because the present moment has touched an old memory your conscious mind has not fully processed. And sometimes you cry simply because you perceive emotional meaning more intensely than the people around you. Some individuals have what researchers describe as heightened sensory processing sensitivity. They notice subtle changes in tone, facial expression, atmosphere, and emotional energy. They may process experiences more deeply and become overstimulated more quickly. They hear the hesitation hidden inside someone's voice. They notice the sadness behind a smile. They feel the emotional weight of a movie long after the credits have ended. A small act of kindness can move them because they understand how rare genuine tenderness can feel. This does not mean their nervous system is defective. It means their nervous system is receiving more, processing more, and sometimes carrying more. The tragedy is that many highly sensitive people spend years trying to become less alive so that others will feel more comfortable around them. They silence their instincts. They harden their expressions. They swallow tears until their throat aches. They mistake numbness for maturity because numbness receives more approval. But healing does not begin when you finally learn how never to cry. Healing begins when you stop treating every tear as evidence against yourself. Once you understand that sensitivity is not a defect, the next question becomes more important. What is actually happening inside a person who cries easily? For many highly sensitive people, the nervous system does not merely notice an experience. It studies it. It absorbs tone, expression, atmosphere, memory, and meaning almost simultaneously. A careless remark that another person forgets within minutes may remain in their mind for hours. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because their brain continues turning the experience over, searching for what it meant. Was that person angry with me? Did I disappoint them? Did I misunderstand something? Should I have answered differently? This process is sometimes described as emotional rumination. It is the tendency to replay emotionally charged moments long after they have ended. For someone who cries easily, the external event may be brief, but the internal experience can continue expanding. A 10-second conversation becomes an hour of analysis. A disappointed expression becomes a story about rejection. A small mistake begins touching every older memory of not feeling good enough. This is why telling a sensitive person to just let it go rarely helps. They are not deliberately holding on. Their nervous system has not finished processing what happened. The brain contains regions involved in awareness, emotional interpretation, and empathy. The insula, for example, helps us notice what is happening inside our bodies and understand the emotional significance of an experience. When this system is highly responsive, a person may become aware of emotional changes before they can explain them logically. Their chest tightens before they know they feel rejected. Their throat closes before they recognize grief. Their eyes fill before they have decided whether the situation is serious enough to cry about. The tears may seem sudden to other people, but inside the body, a complete emotional process has already begun. Highly empathetic individuals may also respond strongly to the emotional states of others. Human beings naturally mirror expressions, gestures, and feelings. This helps us understand one another and create social connection. But some people experience this emotional resonance more intensely. They walk into a room and immediately feel that something is wrong, even when no one has spoken. They sit beside a grieving friend and carry part of that grief home with them. They watch a stranger being humiliated and feel the pain almost as if the humiliation were directed at them. This is not imagination. It is a deeply responsive form of empathy. Yet empathy without boundaries can become exhausting. A person who cries easily may spend the day absorbing emotional information from everyone around them. They notice the coworker forcing a smile. They sense the tension between two family members. They hear the fatigue in a loved one's voice and begin worrying before that person has even admitted they are struggling. By the end of the day, they may feel completely drained without being able to explain why. Nothing dramatic happened to them personally, but emotionally, they have been living inside several people's experiences at once. This is why crowds, conflict, constant conversation, and emotionally intense environments can feel overwhelming. The sensitive person is not antisocial. Their system may simply need more time to recover from the amount of information it has received. They may leave a gathering early and feel guilty about it. They may need silence after work, but worry that their family will interpret that need as rejection. They may disappear for a day, turn off their phone, or sit alone in a dark room because their mind is asking for less stimulation. Others may call them distant, but withdrawal is often not a lack of love. It is nervous system recovery. The person who feels deeply may need solitude in order to return to themselves. Without that recovery, emotional pressure begins to accumulate. Imagine a pressure cooker with no release valve. Heat builds slowly. From the outside, everything appears controlled. But internally, pressure continues rising. This is what happens when someone repeatedly swallows sadness, anger, fear, disappointment, and exhaustion. The body keeps a record of what the person refuses to express. Then one small event opens the valve. A glass breaks. Someone asks, "Are you okay?" A song begins playing. A stranger offers unexpected kindness. Suddenly, the tears come with a force that seems completely out of proportion to the moment. But the person is not crying only about the broken glass, the question, the song, or the kindness. They are crying about everything that had nowhere else to go. Emotional tears are different from the tears that protect the eyes from dust or irritation. They arise through emotional activation and are connected to the body's broader stress response. Crying can slow the emotional escalation that has been building inside the nervous system. It can change breathing, release muscular tension, and create a shift from holding everything in to finally allowing the body to respond. The old popular claim that emotional tears simply remove large amounts of stress hormones from the body is often overstated. The biology is more complicated than that, but the essential truth remains. Crying is part of the body's natural system of emotional regulation. It is not a mechanical failure. It is an attempt to restore balance. After crying, some people feel tired. Others feel calmer, clearer, or strangely empty. The problem has not always disappeared, but the pressure surrounding it has changed. The nervous system has been given permission to complete a response that suppression interrupted. This does not mean every crying episode automatically heals you. Tears cannot replace therapy, supportive relationships, proper rest, or medical care when depression becomes severe. But crying can be one honest part of healing. It can be the moment when the body stops pretending that everything is manageable. For someone who has spent years performing strength, tears may be the first truthful language they have allowed themselves to speak. And perhaps that is why crying can feel so frightening. It removes the mask. It reveals the exhaustion behind competence, the grief behind anger, the loneliness behind independence, and the need for tenderness hidden beneath years of self-protection. When you cry easily, you may believe you are losing control, but sometimes you are not losing control. Sometimes you are finally releasing the pain that control forced you to carry. So the question is no longer, how do I stop crying? The better question is, what is my body trying to tell me when the tears arrive? Healing does not begin with suppression. It begins with curiosity. The next time your eyes fill, try not to attack yourself. Do not immediately call yourself dramatic, weak, irrational, or embarrassing. Pause long enough to notice what is underneath the tears. Are you hurt? Are you overwhelmed? Are you exhausted from being strong for too many people? Tears often arrive where language fails. They speak for the parts of you that learned to remain silent. They reveal the cost of every moment you said, "I'm fine," when you were not fine at all. Emotional healing is not about becoming less sensitive. It is about becoming less ashamed of your sensitivity. A sensitive person does not need to become cold. They need boundaries. Empathy does not require carrying everyone's pain. Compassion does not mean rescuing every wounded person. Understanding someone's behavior does not mean accepting mistreatment. You can feel another person's sadness without making it your responsibility. You can care deeply and still walk away. Your tenderness is valuable, but it must be protected. Without boundaries, sensitivity becomes exhaustion. With boundaries, it becomes discernment. Not every environment deserves access to your softness. Some people will respect your emotions. Others will become irritated because your honesty forces them to confront feelings they avoid. Their discomfort does not prove that your emotions are wrong. Sometimes people criticize sensitivity because numbness is the only survival strategy they know. When they see someone expressing emotion openly, it threatens the armor they built around themselves. So they say, "You are too sensitive." But what they may really mean is, "Your feelings make it harder for me to ignore my own." That is not your burden to carry. You do not need to shrink your emotional world to make emotionally unavailable people comfortable. And you do not need to prove your strength by suffering without witnesses. Real strength is not the absence of tears. It is the ability to remain present with the truth those tears reveal. It is staying with yourself during heartbreak instead of abandoning yourself. It is saying, "This hurt me," without turning pain into hatred. It is asking for help before exhaustion becomes collapse. Numbness may protect you when feeling everything would be unbearable. But numbness is not peace. It closes the door to pain, but it often closes the door to joy as well. You cannot permanently silence sorrow without reducing your capacity for wonder, tenderness, connection, and love. The person who cries during a film may notice beauty others overlook. The person who tears up at kindness may understand its courage. The person who cries when another human being suffers still possesses something the world desperately needs: the refusal to become indifferent. In a culture that rewards emotional detachment, remaining emotionally alive is an act of courage. It means the world has disappointed you, but it has not completely hardened you. Pain has entered your life, but it has not taken away your ability to care. That is not weakness. That is evidence that your humanity is still intact. Frequent crying can sometimes signal that you need more support. If sadness lasts for weeks, daily life feels impossible, you lose interest in what once mattered, or you believe your life has no value, please do not face that alone. Seeking professional help is not failure. It is a decision to stop suffering without support. Your sensitivity deserves care, not punishment. You may have spent years believing that you needed to toughen up. Perhaps what you truly needed was a safer place to soften, a place where your feelings were not mocked, a relationship where your tears were not used against you, a life where you did not have to earn understanding by pretending to be invulnerable. You are not broken because your heart responds quickly. You are not weak because pain reaches you. You are not unstable because kindness moves you. You are a human being with a nervous system that sometimes speaks before words are ready. Let your tears teach you what you have been carrying. Let them show you where you need rest, boundaries, grief, honesty, or help. And when they come, do not rush to apologize. Breathe. Stay with yourself. Remember that crying is not always a collapse. Sometimes it is the moment your body chooses not to collapse. In a world where so many people survive by becoming emotionally frozen, the courage to remain open is rare. Perhaps the strongest thing about you is not that you never break. Perhaps it is that after everything you have felt, you are still capable of feeling. If this story felt familiar, share in the comments the moment you first learned to feel ashamed of your tears, or the moment you finally understood that they were not your enemy. And subscribe if you want more conversations that help you understand the parts of yourself you were once taught to hide. Your tears do not make you less powerful. They prove that something inside you is still